in Parshas Korach, and in Parshas Korach is one of the three sources that Chazal bring, the beginning of Perek Beis Masechet Kiddushin, Shlichus Menolon. And today we will be discussing one of the most fundamental sugis in Shas and in Halacha, Shlichus Shel Odom Kemoisoi. We briefly will discuss with a very basic definition of Shlichus, then a brief Chidush in Shliach LaMitzvahs, and the main focus of today's Shiur is Ein Shliach LeDvar Aveira. So just a very short introduction. In this week's Parsha, we learned the mitzvahs of Roshas, Trumas, and Maises. Kein tarimu gam atem. Gam is a word which lachor is a yitur. And from this word, Chazal learn that a person could be mafish to Maises aridei shliach. And the three sources from which we learn shlichus: gerushin, truma, shchitas haPesach. And the Gemara explains why we need all three. If we would only know shlichus by truma, one could argue truma is different. Yeshnoi b'machshava. If the only source would be get, shana get the isay bal karcha. If the only source would be shchitas haPesach, chulin mekachim lo yalfinan. So those are the sources from which we learn shlichus. The Achronim have huge discussions about shlichus b'mitzvahs. And in many sources in my Sforim, primarily Minchas Osher, Parshas Vayikra, no Parshas Vayikra, Parshas Korach, Masechet Kiddushin, Minchas Osher, I discuss which mitzvahs a person could perform alidei shliach, and by which mitzvah shlichus is not relevant. We're not going to go over that today. And then, Ein Shliach LeDvar Aveira. Divrei Harav veDivrei HaTalmid, Divrei Mi Shomim. Therefore, Ein Shlichus LeDvar Aveira. So let's start off from the fundamentals. Many Achronim, primarily about 120 years ago, were machajish the same yesod, different signoinos, different variations, different styles, but the yesod is the same. Reb Shimon and Reb Elchanan, Shari Yoshe Koivit Shiurim, Reb Itzel Ponovicha, Reb Meir Simcha of Dvinsk, Reb Yosef Engel in Poland, in Krakow. Each of these Gedolim has its own unique style, but the Chiddush is the same. There are two different Gedorim in Shlichus, two different types of Shlichus. Mesiras Koyach, Hisyachsus HaMaisa. Yoda Arichta on one hand, and on the other hand, Baal HaMaisa. So let me explain. When you make a Shliach for a Chalois, Kinyonim, Kiddushin, Gerushin, you delegate authority, and you give him the authority to enter your bailus and do things on your behalf. Kiddushin, Gerushin, Kinyonim. In that case, Reb Shimon says the shliach is the Baal HaMaisa. It's not I'm doing things al yodoi, but rather he is doing things for me. When we make a shliach for anything that is not defined, the chalais, shliach b'mitzvah v'shliach ba'aveira. Soon we will discuss, is there a concept of shlichus b'aveira? Of course there is. There are three aveiras in which there's a concept, yesh shliach leDvar aveira. Me'ila, tvicha o mechiru beganev, shlichus yad bepekodem. So, when we're dealing with shlichus lemitzvah aveira, which is not a chalais, it's not delegating authority. It's rather performing acts and deeds with an agent, with a shaliach. How do we define a chalois? Any ma'aseh that changes the status of a person or a thing, is defined as a chalois. Kiddushin, this woman was single and now she's an Eishes Ish. Gerushin, she was an Eishes Ish and now she's a Penuyo. Muteres lenesuin. Kinyonim, the money was mine and now it's going to be someone else's. That's a chalois. Changing the status of a thing or a human being. That is one gather of shlichus, which is delegating authority. The other gather is yoda harichta. Ani po'el al yedei hashliach. And that is mitzvahs and avedas. So I mentioned there are three different avedas in which we know yesh shliach dvar aveda, but even all the others, Toisim Bavakama Ayin Tes and many other Rishonim say when the shliach is a shogeg yesh shliach aveda, and so we will discuss why. So Minchas Osher made a very, very fundamental comment and argument. If there are two different, distinct Gedorim in Shlichus, Ve'loi harei zeh kaharei zeh, why does the Gemara need to say in the beginning of Perek Beis, the Kiddushin Mem Aleph, Etzrichuta? We can't learn from Truma because Yeshnoi b'machshava. We can't learn Truma and Shchitas HaPesach from Gerushin Yeshnoi bal Korcho. We cannot learn Truma and Gerushin from Shchitas HaPesach because Chulam HaKodshim lo yalfinen. Why doesn't the Gemara simply say, we can't learn Yoda Richter from Mesiras Koyach? Gerushin is a chalais. It is different than Shchitas HaPesach, which is merely a mitzvah. Truma is somewhere in between. It's a mitzvah on one hand and has the elements of chalais on the other because Tevel becomes Truma and it belongs to Shevet HaKoyanim. So what I mean to argue is this, and this is a very fundamental yesod. Fundamentally, Shlichus is one Chiddush. A tremendous Chiddush, but one clear Chiddush. B'kol hanageh l'dinei Torah, person could do whatever he needs to do al yedei shaliach. He can appoint an agent to do things on his behalf. That is the fundamental yesod of shlichus, and it's across the board. So what I mean to argue, we're not dealing with two fundamental different types, different definitions of shlichus, velo harei zeh karei zeh, because in that case we cannot learn one gather from the other. These are nuances, not more than nuances. And I do agree there's a difference between one concept and the other. For instance, Gittin Samach Vav. Hoya mushlach b'toicha bar v'amer kol shomea koili yichtav get leishti yaget kosher. If a person was thrown into a pit and he's afraid he's going to die there, he has nowhere to climb out, and he yells out, anybody hearing my voice, please write a get for my wife in my shlichus. I authorize you. Kol shomea koili yichtav get leishti, they could write a get. Machlokes Rishonim, if he says, Kol haroitze yichtav get leishtoi, is that enough as the delegation of authority? And I ask a very fundamental question. Person screams out in Rosh Hashanah, Kol haroitze la'harag es ploini yihargeno. Anybody that wants to kill Pinchas, kill him. And a person hears that and he says, I always wanted to kill Pinchas, but I was afraid of Mrs. Beis Din. According to Shammai Ezokin, yesh shliach dvar aveira. Now I have shlichus. They're going to kill him, not me. Is that defined as shlichus regarding dvar aveira? To me, it's pushed as not. What are you, crazy? What did he say? Whoever wants to kill that man, kill him. That's not shlichus. Shliach dvar aveira is when you look for a person that's an evil person. He has no interest in hurting that man. He's your ba'machlekes, he doesn't even know him. And you send him, you give him the gun, you give him the knife, you pay him. That's shlichus v'dvar aveira. And Shammai is the one that says, yesh shliach l'dvar aveira. We paskin ain't shliach l'dvar aveira. But kol hashomea koili is definitely not defined as shlichus by mitzvahs or aveiras, but it is the delegation of authority, and therefore they get as they get kosher. On the other hand, the Shalech is Abeira Biad Cheres Shoyte V'Kot Nechayev. Mechlokes Rishonim is the Chiyav Mitzad Garmin, Ezekiel, or Mitzad Shliach Advar Aveira. And the Nesiv Simakuf Bebeis wonders, and Shlichas Lekoton. And I say, when we're delegating authority in Shlichas Lekoton, because a Koton cannot bear any authority, he's not a Bar Chiyuv, it's not responsible. But when you're sending a Shliach just to perform a deed, like a Dvar Aveira, Chayiv, Yesh Shlichas Lekoton. So I gave two examples. In one case, there is shlichus by the delegation of authority, but not by mitzvahs and avedas. In the other case, there is shlichus by mitzvahs and avedas, but not by chalosim. So I do agree to the fundamentally sort of all these giants, these great achrayim. But what I mean to stress is they're not two separate dinim. The fundamental rule of shlichus is one simple yesod. When the Torah speaks about people and their actions, it is not only when they do those acts and deeds themselves. When they do it out of their shliach, is considered as if they're the ones that did it. And that is all-encompassing, whether it's a chalois or a mitzvah or an aveira. That is the point I wanted to make. Ein shliach ledvar aveira. Why not? Mem beis u'med beis in kedushin. Divrei Rav, divrei Talmud, divrei Mishaim. And there are two fundamental interpretations of this svara: the Sma, Rebbe Kiveg. Sma kuf pei beis beis, shin mem chesiv kot nachof. The Sma says that the sender of the shaliach, that initiated doing whatever he wants to do alidei shaliach, he is the one that says, "Kesavar hoyisi shelo yishmali divrei Rav divrei Talmud divrei Mishamin." What I said was just a joke. It didn't occur to me for a moment that he's going to kill a person, that he's going to steal, that he's going to do bad things because I sent him. I say yes. A Kodesh Baruch Hu says no. Why would it occur to me for a moment that I listen to me and I'll go against Hashem? That's the sort of divrei Rav. And the Sma Shimon Ches quotes the Rishonim that by Shoigeg yesh shliach advar aveira. And I think it means to say, according to my explanation, we understand why. If the shliach is a Shoigeg, the Mishalech can't rinse his hands clean and say, I thought he's not going to listen to me. He's a Shoigeg. He wasn't aware that it's an aveira. Why would you think he wouldn't listen to you? But this approach is a big doichak. I say, when you send a shliach to do an awful thing, like murder, that Beis Shammai Ezekun relates to, yesh shliach advar aveira, or stealing, or theft, or choivel amazik, nobody would send a Bisol Salanto to kill a person. You usually look for a mafioso, for a bad person, an evil person, and usually you're going to send the same hitman again and again. And the same goes to sending your shliach to steal, to rob, to hurt, to attack. Not always is it reasonable to say, "Kasovar hoyisi shelo yishmali." It didn't occur to me that he's going to listen to me. He listened to you a year ago, he listened to you a month ago, he listened to you 5 times, and why did you think still he's not going to listen to you? And why not? The other kasha you have is Shlit v'Shiganvu. Shlit v'Shiganvu, that's a sugim bov Messiah. Chayovim, and each of them is a shliach of the other. And they steal together. And the Gemara says, Ein shliach advar aveira. Megid zochana nafshe, zochana malachavrei. Rabbi Kivega asks this question. According to the Sma, you can't say, I thought he's not going to listen to me. You saw that he is listening to you. You stole together. You were there. Each of you was there. And you both stole together, and each is a shliach of the other. So in this case, the Sma doesn't make sense. Third kasha. When the shliach is a shoigig, yesh shliach advar aveira. According to the Sma, it doesn't depend whether the shliach is a shoigig. It only depends whether the mishleach was aware that the shliach is a shoigig. If the shliach was a shoigig, but the mishleach wasn't aware that the shliach is a shoigig, we still would say, Ein shliach advar aveira. And the mishleach could say, I didn't know he's a shoigig, and therefore I thought he's not going to listen to me. And the Tosis is mashma depends only on the shliach as yeshogig or meis. It doesn't depend whether the mishleach was aware that he's a shogig or not. So Rabbi Kiva Eigen Bava Metzia Daf Yud has a totally different approach, and he says, "Ein shliach advar aveira divrei Rav divrei Talmud divrei Mishamin." The Torah wasn't machad shlichus, only b'derech heta. Shlichus be'isur. There is no shlichus la'avar aveira. And this is also a chiddush. For instance, kinyan anasa be'isa is chal. That's a siman shechanoch, siman reish ches. And the source are Gemaras, clear Gemaras. We don't say maybe the Torah wasn't machadish Torah sekanyonim only beheta. Any Torah, the Torah was machadish, l'chayra works l'tav v'lamutav, l'tov v'l'ra, l'mitzvah or l'aveda. So what's this for? But maybe the Torah wasn't machadish shlichus only bidvar heta. Pnei Yeshua is similar to the Bekivege, but it's totally, to a certain extent, different nuance, the Pnei Yeshua says. But the only three sources we have from which we learn shlichus are all heta. Most of them are mitzvah, like a Rosh Hashanah Samaisa, Shchitas HaPesach. Even Gershon sometimes would be a mitzvah. So the Pnei Yeshua says the same svara, but not that Chazal were mechadash mesvara, that the Torah wasn't mechadash shlichus b'derech yisur, but rather we have no source because the three sources are all b'dvar mitzvah, or at least b'dvar heta. So I have another question. According to the Sma, the Meshalech says, I was confident that he's not going to listen to me because divrei Rav, divrei Talmud, divrei Yishamin. But if yesh shlichus dvar aveda, why wouldn't he listen to you? He doesn't have an aveda. The aveda is yours. And if this is the svora ein shliach dvar aveda, that means without this svora we would say yesh shliach dvar aveda. So the svora l'chayra doesn't make sense. The Meshalech says, why would he listen to me to do such a terrible aveda? He's not doing an aveda. You're doing the aveda because he's your shaliach. So I want to explain why I don't think this is a real kasha. And this brings us back to shlichus b'devar mitzvah. I wrote various different sources in my sforum, a gewaldige yesod. Ein shlichus b'zgulo, yesh shlichus b'dinim. So when a person sends a shaliach to be makayim a mitzvah, whether it's milas haben or bidikas chametz or whatever it is, who gets schar mitzvah? Shaliach or the sender? To me it's poshet only the shaliach. The sender did nothing. You were too lazy to do bidikas chametz in your home, so you went to bed and you sent a shaliach. And you expect to get schar mitzvah? You expect to be rewarded. For what do you want to be rewarded? For sleeping? That's a bizui mitzvah. So I am aware, Rashi says in Kedushim Amalef, mitzvah bo yosem b'shlicha de kiyose gufa b'mitzvahs makabel schar tfei, mashma b'divrei Rashi, you get more reward, but even when you send a shliach, you are rewarded, and I say, you are rewarded in a minimal way. You're rewarded for the Torah, for the effort, for worrying, for making the phone calls, for paying the shaliach. You do get a certain level of sachar. But the kedusha of the mitzvah is only for the one that actually performed the mitzvah. Betorach gufo. Who has the sgula of mitzvah gereres mitzvah, the shliach or the mishalech? To me it's poshet the shaliach. Who has the sgula of mitzvah agune magnu metzila matzli? Megin min ha-poranut, matzel mi-yetzer hara, the shliach or the mishalech. To me, it's simple, the shaliach. He was the one that actually performed the mitzvah. So shlichus is like a pipe, and it has a reshet. It has a filter. And it only lets dinim through. Kedusha, tahara, zgula don't go through that pipe. They go back to the sender. No. They stay with the shaliach that actually performed the mitzvah, and they do not go back to the sender. And the same applies to Avedis. According to Shammai Zukin, Tzei haroiges hanefesh ha-mishaleach chayiv yesh shliach edvar Aveda. Could the shaliach that actually killed the person with his own hands, he shot him, he stabbed him, he strangled him, could he be oile leduchan? Kohen Shoragis and Nefesh Lo Yisro Eskapov. But the Shlich said, I didn't kill him, the Mishaleach did. No. The Mishaleach bears responsibility. You are the one that shed blood. Yedechem dome milo'u. Uveforischem kapechem alim einai yedechem dome milo'u. Kohen Shoragis and Nefesh Lo Yisro Eskapov. So just like mitzvah, the same by Aveira. Kedusha and Tuma, Tzcha v'Oinish, Kruchim yardu min hashamayim. And they are both on the person that did the deed, whether it's a mitzvah or an Aveira. Yesh shlichus b'mitzvah is yotzi yedei choiva, not more than that. Yesh shlichus b'Aveira, he's going to get punished. But the zgula, to good or to bad, is on the person that actually performed the mitzvah. I know it's against the place of Yordei Simachov Ches. My main raya is from the Rosh, Chulin Perek Vav Siman Ches. In that sugi we learn, Choytev mitzvah mechaveira tzorach l'shalom lo yasor zehuvim. If a person snatches away a mitzvah from the one that the mitzvah was actually his, you need to compensate him, pay yasor zehuvim. And the Rosh brings a machlokes between Rabbeinu Tam and other Rishonim. A man had a baby boy, and he's mamana a moil to do the milah. And the day of the bris, another moil just shows up out of nowhere, snatches the baby, puts him on the sandik's lap, and he does the bris. Nobody asked him to do so. Does moil beis, moil number 2, does he need to compensate and pay asor zuvim to moil number 1? Some Rishonim say yes, others say no, because it wasn't his mitzvah. He was merely a shaliach. And the Asor Zehuvim compensation is only if you take away a mitzvah from the Bala mitzvah that the Torah was machayev him. And I wonder why none of the Rishonim addressed the question, and why wouldn't Moel number 2 need to pay Asor Zehuvim to the Avia Ben? Not to Moel number 1, but rather to Avia Ben. He was Mamana Shliach, Shliach Shalom Kamoisai. If his Shliach would do the milah, he would have the Sechar. But now another milah, who was not his Shliach, did the milah, so the father doesn't get Sechar. Why doesn't he deserve a Asor Zehuvim? And I say, because the moment you gave the mitzvah away to another, you already lost your Sechar. The father will get Sechar for a totally different mitzvah, which is Lachnis Lebris, but not for the milah. And therefore, none of the Rishonim say that Moel number 2 needs to pay the Avia Ben, because the Avia Ben is out of the picture when he was Mamana Shaliach. So this is a yesod that applies to Dvar Mitzvah and the Dvar Aveira. And therefore, yes, even if we say Yeshliach Dvar Aveira, still the Meshalach could say, Kasavri Yisi Shelo Yishmali. So I explained 2 different approaches. What do Chazal mean with the words Divrei Rav v'Divrei Talmud Divrei Mi Shamin? According to the Sma, these are the words as if the Meshaleach says. I was just making a joke. It didn't occur to me that it's going to listen to me and go against Hashem. Rabbi Akiva Eiger says, no. It's like a din Torah. Lo chol ha-Moshe Messina. The Torah is machad shlichus, but not when it's against Torah. I want to bring 2 sources in Shas. Besides Kedushim and Beis and Beis, we only find the expression Divrei Rav, Divrei Talmud, Divrei Misham in 2 sources. And one is Mashmek Rabbi Akiva Eiger, and the other one would support the Sma. Sanhedrin Lamed Ches, the Gemara says, Ein toyanim lemesis. A mesis that tries to incite people to be over the Avodah Zorah doesn't deserve our mercy, and we do not plead for him. And the Gemara brings a raya from the Nachash. The Nachash encouraged Adam and Chava to eat from the Eitz Hadas, and he was punished. And the Gemara says the Nachash could have argued, Divrei Rav, Divrei Talmud, Divrei Mishamin. Why did they listen to me and go against Hashem? This Gemara is like the Svar of the Sma. They shouldn't have listened to me. I say, eat Eitz Hadas, and they heard from HaKadosh Baruch Hu not to do so. Then there's a Gemara in Tmurah Daf Chofei, dealing with Leket Shekapei and Matnas Aniyim. B'shas HaNesher, if a person says Hefker, and Hefker is Potem Leket Shekapei, He wants to circumvent the need of Lechashikapeh and to be able to take the fruit for himself. So he's mafke b'shas nesha. The Gemara says, it's too late. Divrei Rav, Divrei Talmud, Divrei Mishoimin. We're not dealing with shlichus. We're dealing with a man and a tree, and fruit falling off that tree. So what is pshat here? Divrei Rav, Divrei Talmud, Divrei Mishoimin. The Torah says nesha, and the owner of the field says hefker. Torah has the upper hand. You can't interfere with Dinei Torah. That would support the Bekiva's Eges interpretation of Divrei Rav, Divrei Talmud, Divrei Shomer, Lagabi, Shliach Dvar Aveda. The Torah is Machad Shlichus. Kodesh Baruch Hu says, no, you cannot say yes. Your word cannot override a Kodesh Baruch Hu's word. And it is the same as the Gemara in Tmurah Chafei. Your hefker doesn't override the Torah's nesha. You're saying shlichus doesn't override the Torah saying this is something the shliach cannot do. So after all the sources and introductions that Svaros I said, let me share with you my interpretation of Divrei Rav, Divrei Talmud, Divrei Yisham in Kedushim and Beis, not in the two other sources. So my feeling would be this. The fundamental assumption, Hanochas Yesoid, is two people can't bear responsibility for one Avera. It's either Shaliach or the Shaliach. Cannot be both of them. One Avera was done. One person bears liability. One person should be punished. Either the Shaliach or the Shaliach. So the argument to punish the Mishalech is Shlichus Shalom Kemoisei. But on the other hand, there's a voice that shouts, Mektzei Olam Ad Ketzeu. Is there any room to be lenient regarding the person that actually performed the Avera? Does he have any teretz? Does he have any justification? Mr. So-and-so asked me, he sent me. And we ask the Shaliach, Divrei Rav, Divrei Talmud, Divrei Mishoimin. These words are not uttered by the Shaliach, but by the Torah, by the Beis Din, by Chazal. There is no room at all to pater the Shaliach, and therefore we cannot be Machayev the Mishaliach. So Divrei Rav, Divrei Talmud, Divrei Mishoimin cries out, there is no room for leniency. This person killed, he stole, he hit, he hurt. He's the one that performed the Aveda. His Mishaleach, it's merely words and nothing more than words. And that's the Lashon of the Ramah Safsem and Shimem Ches in Choshe Mishpat. Hashaliach hu ikar haganev. The Mishaleach bears responsibility as well. However, the responsibility and liability of the Shaliach overweighs that of the Mishaleach 1,000 times. He is the one that did the Aveda. We cannot absolve him from responsibility, and that is why we cannot be Machayev the Mishaleach. And that's the svor of the Shaliach as a Shoigig, yes, Shaliach and Devar Aveda. And it doesn't depend whether the Mishaleach was aware that the Shaliach is a Shoigig, because the svor is a totally different svor. When the Shaliach is a Shoigig, he doesn't bear responsibility anyway. Because Shoigig is Potter. Potter Memises Beis Potter Mamalkas. He is Chayev by Nazikin, but that's an exception. Oda Moed Li'olam. Machloikis Tzois and others, whether Shoigig Begineva V'Giszeila has Kinyonik Zelu or the Yazadin of Aganav and Gazlan. So that's the svara of the Baishogig Yeshliach Dvar Aveda. So this is a new approach and a new understanding of the very concept Ein Shliach Dvar Aveda and interpretation. Pshat number 3 in the words Divrei Rav, Divrei Talmud, Divrei Mishoimin. And I think it's more appealing than the previous two svaras of the giants, the Smara B'Kivege. But I'm totally subjective. I think my Einik are the sweetest, the most beautiful babies in the world. But I have become aware throughout the years that every Zaidi thinks so. And I'm not objective. It's the same with Svaras. So I think my pshat in Divrei Rav, Divrei Talmud, Divrei Mishama, Misyashev Beloshen Agamora Bepashtusai, and it's the most appealing pshat, and it explains many halachas and many sugis. So today in our short shiur, I touched upon Gewaldige, great Yesodis, starting off with the very definition of Shlichus Shalom Kemoisai, a big chiddush in the realm of Shlichus B'mitzvahs, and from there we got to Shliach Advar Aveira, Divrei Rav, Divrei Talmud, Divrei Misham. But when we read Parshas Koirach, it is impossible not to speak about the central theme of this parsha, which is so important. Kama kosha onsho shemachleikis. Burichatu Adeinu Eloheinu melech haolam shakol niyeh b'dvarim. In the tragedy of Koirach v'Hadassai, the entire Eidah was swallowed up by the earth. And Rashi writes, Boi v'ra'ei kama kosha ha'machloikes, shai bezdin shel ma'alo ein oinshen ad 20 shana. Bezdin shel mata ad shiyavi beis saros. V'kan avdu af yonkei shadayim. Bezdin shel ma'ala isn't done until a person is 20 years old. Bezdin shel mata is 13. You need to be a bar mitzvah. And by Machlokes, even infants pay the price. Even babies perished. And that is because Machlokes is the most horrible tragedy for Klal Yisrael and in our history. Kama kosha onsha shemachlokes. Lekutei Torah of the Ari Kodesh and Parshas Shoftim is an unbelievable pshat. Reb Chaim Vital, the spokesman of the Ari Kodesh, doile v'mashke metores Rabbi HaKodesh at sof kol hadoros, brings a medrash b'shas Chorban Habayis Shalom Malach Yeshos es HaKodesh Baruch Hu. Ato amarto oiseves ben oiles shchata b'yom echad, Arei Tzidkiyu HaMelech, and his children were murdered in the same day. Ato marto v'shofach es dome v'chiso ba'ofar v'lo kiyamta. Domam nishbach kemayim ve'ein kover. Ato marto v'pinus habayis, only then v'roa kohen es nega. It's a Mishnah in a Goim. Chosa Torah mamonim she'yisol, so we need to salvage the kelim, take out all the vessels before the kohen is metame the bayis b'bayis ha'menuga v'lo kiyamta. Bayit v'kol machmadea olim be'esh. So there are many sources in Bavli and Yerushalmi from which you learn that HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a way is Makayim the mitzvahs that he gave us. And the Malachim asked, B'shas HaChorban, Lo kiyamto. The Medrash doesn't say what HaKadosh Baruch Hu answered. And not always does he answer. He's not obliged to answer anyone's questions. But the Ari HaKodesh says he did answer. The questions and the response are in Parshas Shoftim. Ki yepola memchu davar, and you won't understand ben dam ledam. That's the question of kis yadam ben nega lenega, ben din ledin. Yepola memchu davar. The answer is divrei rivois bishorecho. In a time of riv umodoin, in a time of machlokes, there is no midas harachamim. And these three mitzvahs are a certain expression and manifestation of rachamei shemayim. But Mishas Machlokes, there is only din and no rachamim whatsoever. So once again we learn what a terrible plague Machlokes is. Kama godla sholim. Shmi shenichtav b'kedushia mochal hamayim kedei la'aseh sholim ben ish le'ishto. And the Rambam writes in the end of Hilchos Chanukah, Loi nitnu Torah ela na'aseh sholom v'yolim shenemen ruchei od achenoim v'chol nesiv eseyo sholom. Twice in Shas, Shabbos Peches, Gittin Lamed Vav. The Gemara says, Hana lovim v'yena molvin shomach aposam v'yena meshivim. עליהם הכוס אבוימה ואוהביו כצייס השמש בגבורוסו. The Shus Yaakov suggests a beautiful pshat, and he wasn't aware that this pshat already appears in the Rishonim. Toises Rosh Shabbos Peches Meiri Gittin Lamed Vav. What does it mean? Va'ohavav k'tzeis hashemesh b'gvurasai. In Chulin Daf Samach, Chazal say, in the very first days of Maaseh Bereishis, the Levana comes with an argument, a claim against the Shemesh. Ein shnei malochem mishamshem b'keser echad. Me'asu HaKadosh Baruch Hu, mi atasi yareach v'higdil es hashemesh. I wasn't there. No one was there because it was before Adam HaRishon was created. But I guess, how did those proceedings develop? The moon comes to Beis Shalom. I won't open a tick against the sun. Kodesh Baruch Hu summons them all, a shofet kol ha'oretz. Okay, who's the claimant? The Levana. Speak up. Two kings can't share the same throne. Two kings can't share the same crown. And therefore it's either me or him. Kodesh Baruch Hu turns to the sun. What are you saying? The sun says, about what? I don't know why I was called. What am I doing here? Am I supposed to give testimony? What is he saying? And Kodesh Baruch Hu says, don't you understand? Didn't you hear? He says, two kings can't share the same crown. And the son says, who are the two kings? He and you. And the son is taken aback and he says, I never considered myself a king. I thought I'm a servant. I serve. I'm a slave. The Navi says, V'nachnu oisem malocha mi'alois achamo ad seisa kechavim. And the son says, I need to be up before Alois achamo. I need to prepare on this journey. And I can't go to sleep until way after Tzeisa Kechavim. I'm not a king, I'm a servant. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you are the real king. Lebilti rum levavoy me'echav. Me'etasa yoreach ve'gdil et hashemesh. And that's a promise throughout the ages. Hanelovim ve'einam olovin. Shamachaposim ve'einam eshiven. And they run away from Machlokes. They have the promise, va'ohavav ketzeis hashemesh bigvurosai. And my pshat in this week's parsha, Moshe Rabbeinu says, Boiker v'yoyda Hashem es ha'shaloi v'es ha'kodesh v'yekra v'elav v'es ha'shayivcha boi yakra v'elav. And Rashi writes, Omer Moshe, gvuras cholak ha'kodesh Baruch Hu b'yelo, me'yechoy lamatem lahafech boiker la'erev, kein tuchlu levatel hazeh. Moshe Rabbeinu says to Korach, Yechoylem atem lahafech boiker la'erev. Could you turn day into night and night into day? You can't. Why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, thousands of years ago, if you could reverse that, you might be successful in your machlokes. But that is irreversible, and that comes to teach you, don't incite machlokes, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised, like Moshe and Aaron HaKohen, Aleim HaKos HaVoyma va'ohavav ketzeis hashemesh bigvurosai. Yehazor Hashem, we should always be amongst those Talmidei Chachamim hamarbim sholem b'yolam. We should be marbim sholem b'yolam. And mida keneged mida. Kodesh Baruch Hu should give us peace and prosperity. And besoros tovis v'yishlach lanu Mashiach tzidkenu b'mheiro v'yomeinu.